Hey, do you like pastry? I do, and too bad if you don't, but when we do Radians, we're going to talk about cutting up pastry and eating it. So that's quite fun. I also have to mention in Radians, the whole purpose of this is to help you think in Radians. So, like if I said this is an inch, how long is this? You might have a look at it and go, oh, it's about 4 or 5 inches. You're not going to go, this is an inch. Well, how many centimeters is that? Convert it back to centimeters, measure the other one in centimeters, and then divide it again. That would be way too much work. So my goal in this video is to help you not have to do that with radians, help you get a radian measurement and know how big it is without having to do all the degree conversions. And that's going to save you a lot of time in the long run and also help you answer some pretty difficult questions when they come up later, so that they're not difficult anymore. And then you're one of those kids that's getting 90% in trig while everyone else is struggling to get 50. Again, I've said that before, but this is gold for that. So trig's my favourite subject. I do recommend you listen to me and follow my instructions because it's going to work. All right, here we go. What are radians? So if I were to take a circle and give it 1 unit in radius, what's its circumference? And if I were to consider the angle of rotation to get to that length of 2 pi, currently we know it is 360 degrees. But if I decided that that angle was exactly the same as the length, then that angle would be also 2 pi. And therefore, to create our unit of conversion, we know that 360 degrees is the same as 2 pi radians. Or 180 degrees, if I divided it by 2, is the same as pi radians. That means that to get to an angle of rotation of 180 degrees, I've gone through 1 pi of rotation. So if I were talking in radians, I'm going to call it pi, and if I'm talking in degrees, I'm going to call it 180. Just like if I was talking in centimeters, a ruler is 30, and if I'm talking in inches, a ruler is 12. You know, it's just now when we refer to our other unit in our other language, we put it in terms of pi. It makes it harder for you to see. If I said something like, pi on 3 as an angle, you're not used to it, and so you can't picture how big that is. But it's actually really easy to do if you can picture how big pi is and then portion it down. So pi on 3 would just mean cut this arc into 3 parts. Always easier to cut the arc than to just try and work out a third of and part. Start out here and go to the center rather than starting in the center and going out. So that is pi on 3 as a rotation, which is actually, if 180 was divided into 3, that's exactly the same as 60 degrees. So I think you're already getting the drift of how we can convert many of our radians into degrees without actually having to times or divide by 180 on pi, which you also do need to do sometimes, so don't lose that skill. But many of them can be calculated by looking at how far around this piece of what I call pasty, because in my opinion, a meat pie looks like this. I love my pastry, but I'm not a big fan of pies. I'm a fan of pasties. Pasties are those little vegetable ones that get folded like this, and they're heaps tastier in my opinion. Everyone's different. So pie is now a pasty. So if I am asked to work out how big pasty on 6 is, I take my pasty and I cut it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces, and I go, pasty on 6 is that big. That's the same as a sixth of 180, which is 30 degrees. Some of these you'll learn. You'll actually learn pi on 3, pi on 6, pi on 4, another really easy one. Cut your pasty into quarters. That's pi on 4. That's the same as 45 degrees. You'll actually learn those translations just by default, but I don't want you to learn them because you've been told them. I want you to learn them because you can see that it's a quarter of 180, and a quarter of 180 is 45, and a quarter of pi is a quarter of pi. And I know that may seem ridiculous for your first exercise that you do in radians, because you can just times by 180 on pi in the calculator and it'll all come out. But it doesn't help you develop the skills that you need later. And I'm always a big fan of making everything work for your end goal, not just for what's easiest to get my homework done now. So what's pi on 2? You should be able to work that one out by the time I've drawn it in. 180 degrees is there. Pi is there. Pi on 2 is here. So this is going to have to be, that's right, 90 degrees. Same as pi on 2. Let's look at a few slightly longer ones, like 5 pi on 6's. Well, pi on 6, whatever's on the bottom, remember there's your pasty. Cut your pasty into 6 and count through 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pi on 6 is that big. Now, if you needed that in degrees, you could remember the fact that pi on 6 was 30 degrees, or you could look at it and go, yeah, 30 degrees looks about right, and it's a sixth of 180. So if that was 180 and I came back 30, that's the same as 150 degrees. That's a skill we really need when we start doing unit circle questions. And I've deliberately drawn my pasty this way, and if you can take this convention as well, draw your 0 here and rotate that way to get to your pi. So if I've got 4 pi on 3, I'm going to cut my pasty into 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I need a little bit more piece of pasty. 4 pi on 3 is down here. So pi on 3 was 60 degrees because it was a third of 180. So I need another 60 from 180. That's 240 degrees. What if I want to convert backwards? Say I've got something like 300 degrees and we want it in terms of pi. In radians, 300 degrees. I've got to work my way around and think, okay, well, there's 180. There's 360, so 300 is 60 back. Now again, this is not the same as bearings. With bearings, we start at 0 degrees and rotate this way. In radians, in unit circle, trigonometry, 0 and rotate that way. So don't get all smart and decide you're going to put your 0 somewhere else. You'll regret it later and you'll muck everything up in your brain. So don't. Now I decided that was 60, so I've got or a third. So I've got to break this into thirds. So go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to be 5 pi on 3. Now that felt weird because I counted 5 and you were thinking 60 degrees, so you want to write pi on 6, but it's pi on 3 because remember I cut my pasty into thirds to get 60s. Your turn. All the ones here on this page can be done with the method I just showed you by drawing them. I'd like you to practice that. So pause the video and then I'll show you the answers. One, 2, 3. 3 pi on 4 is here. That's 45 degrees. Come back 45 from 180. 135 degrees. Pi on 6, cut my pasty into 6 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a sixth of 180 is 30 degrees, so 180 plus 30, 210 degrees. Pasty on 2, 1, 2, 3, 270 degrees. Now I know I'm going faster than you might have been able to go, but when you get used to the numbers about how far around the circle you are, this does get quicker. 3 pi. 3 pasties. 1, 2, that's 360. 3, so 360 plus 180 is 540. Thirds. Oh, now I've drawn an axis in here. That's just a habit from unit circle. You'll end up doing that too. But thirds go like this. So when I count my thirds, I'm counting... Oh, bumped the camera with my pen. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I went round 360 and then round another 120. 480. Pi on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So round 360, round another 45 degrees. So 360 and 45 is 405 degrees. Great job. Okay, these particular ones will convert back nicely using the circle as well. A lot of angles won't. So this particular thing we're just going to do for practice to get your brain around what we need to do for radians. If I were asked in a test to change to radians, one of these, I would probably times by pi on 180 just to get it done quickly. But that's not what we're practicing right now because we need this skill for other things, like I said. So you do just need to trust me and give this one a shot, and you'll thank me later. Okay, 150 degrees I'm going to put on the circle. We'll find out where that is. So that's 180, come back 30. Now that's a sixth. So it's pi on 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pi on 6. 225 degrees. 0, 180 plus another 45. Now 45 was a quarter of our pasty. So I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quarters. 390. Of course, you can pause the video anytime and have a go at this yourself. It's much better if you do. 360 plus another 30. So 30 was, as you can see here, a sixth. So that's just going to be pi on 6. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 pi on 6. 135 is actually 180 come back 45. If you work it out that way, you know what quadrant it is and you can always minus to get those. 45 is a quarter, so we've got 3 pi on 4. Remember when you're counting them, you start at 0 and you just go 1, 2, 3, just count those edges. 450, 360 and another 90 to make 450s at the top here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 halves. Oh, got to remember that arms there with my pen. 720, well that's 360 and 360 again. So we're here, we've gone around pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi. Good work.